Think about human history like a giant, sprawling graveyard. If you take a walk through it, you'll see the tombstones of absolute giants. The Hittites? Erased. The Babylonians? Total dust. The Assyrians? Completely gone. Back in the day, these guys were the undisputed heavyweights of the ancient world. They had the biggest armies, the richest cities, and they basically ran the show. But time is like a giant grinding machine, and eventually it catches up with everyone. Every single one of these massive global superpowers made a fatal mistake, crashed, and burned. Now they are just boring chapters in a dusty history textbook. It's a guaranteed pattern. Empires rise and empires fall. But here is where things get absolutely crazy. There is one empire that somehow beat the system. While every other ancient superpower bit the dust, Iran, or Persia as you might know it, just straight up refused to die. We are talking about 5,000 years of continuous, unbroken history. That is insane. How in the world is Iran still standing after 5 millennia? Let me break it down for you, because it definitely wasn't an easy ride. It's not like they were just chilling in peace for 5,000 years. Throughout history, Iran faced the absolute worst-case scenarios. I'm talking about the biggest, baddest armies to ever exist, knocking down their front door. First, Alexander the Great rolled through and burned their capital to the ground. Then the mighty Roman Empire tried to break them. After that came the massive Arab expansion. And if that wasn't enough, here came the Mongols, literally the most terrifying, apocalyptic force you could ever imagine in the ancient world. By all normal logic, Iran should have been wiped off the map forever. Every single one of these conquerors tried to crush it, and honestly, on paper, a lot of them actually won the military battles.
But here is the biggest plot twist in history, and it's something most people completely misunderstand. Iran didn't survive 5,000 years because they had sharper swords or bigger shields. That's the Hollywood myth. The truth is way more mind-blowing. When those terrifying foreign invaders marched in and took over, the Iranians didn't just fight back with raw violence. They did something completely next level. They absorbed their enemies. Think of it like a giant cultural sponge. The invaders came in with their swords, their fire, and their anger, ready to destroy everything. But instead of just bleeding out, Iran wrapped its incredible culture, its beautiful art, its poetry, and its entire way of life around those invaders. Before long, those fierce Mongol warriors and Greek kings were wearing Persian clothes, speaking the Persian language, and ruling exactly like Persian kings. The invaders thought they had conquered the land, but they were dead wrong. The invaders didn't conquer Iran. Iran conquered them through culture. They literally digested their enemies. Today, we're going to dive deep into exactly how they pulled off the ultimate survival trick. We're bringing in wild AI visuals and high-tech 4K reconstructions to bring this 5,000-year story to life like you have never seen before. Get ready, because you are about to witness the real, untold story of the immortal empire. Alright, so most people think the story of Iran starts with those massive, flashy Persian empires you see in movies like 300. But if you really want to understand why this place is immortal, you have to go back way further. We're talking thousands of years before the first Persian king even put on a crown. Back in the day, mainstream history basically ignored this part of the world. But recently, we found something that changes everything. Imagine a place called Jaraft. Deep in the heart of Iran, archaeologists stumbled upon 7,000-year-old urban settlements. I'm talking about massive cities, complex societies, and beautiful art from a time when most of the world was still living in basic huts. These people were legends that history almost forgot, and they were the original architects of the Iranian spirit.
And then you've got the Elamites. These guys were the ultimate OGs. While the famous Sumerians were building their ziggurats in Mesopotamia, the Elamites were right next door in the city of Susa, and they were not to be messed with. They had this epic, thousands of years-long rivalry with the Sumerians that would make modern sports rivalries look like a joke. But here's the mind-blowing part. The Elamites weren't just about war. They were pioneers in diplomacy. Get this, we're talking about the world's first ever documented international treaty. It was signed between the Elamites and a guy named Naram Sin of Akkad. Think about that for a second. While the rest of the world was basically just hitting each other with rocks, these guys were sitting down and writing legal peace contracts. That's a level of sophistication that was light years ahead of its time. But then, the real game changer happened. Around 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, a massive wave of people started moving in, the Aryan migrations. Now, forget everything you think you know about that word from modern politics. Back then, Aryan was a linguistic and cultural group of Indo-Europeans. These people moved onto the plateau and changed the DNA of the region forever. In fact, that's where the name comes from. Iran literally means the land of the Aryans. This wasn't just a simple move, it was a massive cultural collision. And this is where the cosmic bad luck we talked about earlier starts to kick in. As these different groups, the local Elamites and the incoming Aryans, started to mix, the entire universe seemed to say, okay, let's see if you can survive this. They were surrounded by enemies, stuck on a harsh, rugged plateau, and basically targeted by every rising power in the ancient world. It was like a universe versus one scenario from day one. But instead of breaking, these different cultures started to fuse together. They weren't just building a country, they were building an identity that was so tough, so flexible, and so smart that it would eventually outlast every single empire that tried to bury it.
All right, let's talk about the ultimate weapon. When you hear the word weapon in the ancient world, you probably think of iron swords, heavy chariots, or massive armies. But Iran's greatest weapon wasn't made of metal, it was made of pure thought. It was an ideology so powerful that it literally rewired the human brain. This is where we see the ultimate flex of Iranian survival, the birth of Zoroastrianism. To understand how wild this is, you have to look at how people used to think. Back in the ancient world, everybody basically thought time was like a giant hamster wheel. You live, you die, the seasons change, and everything just loops forever in a circle. There was no real end goal, it was just an endless cycle. But then, out of the Iranian plateau comes this revolutionary thinker named Zoroaster, and he completely flips the script. He drops a concept that absolutely blew people's minds. He invented linear time. For the first time ever, someone said, no, time is not a circle, time is a straight line. There was a specific beginning, we are currently in the middle of a massive struggle, and there is going to be a definitive end, followed by a final judgment. This was absolutely mind-blowing. Suddenly, human life wasn't just a pointless loop. Everything you did actually mattered, because history was moving toward a grand finale. And what exactly was this struggle? It was the ultimate cosmic war. Zoroastrianism introduced the concept of pure dualism. It wasn't about 100 different gods fighting over random things. It was a clear-cut battle between good and evil. On one side, you have Ahura Mazda, the supreme creator, representing absolute light, truth, and goodness. On the exact opposite side, you have Ahriman, the spirit of total darkness, chaos, and lies. The Iranians believed that the entire universe was a battlefield for these two forces, and every single human being had to pick a side. Are you going to be a warrior of light, or are you going to fall to the darkness? It was intense, it was personal, and it gave people a massive sense of purpose. Now here is the master twist. The real reason Iran never truly died, even when they lost wars. This is that cultural digestion we talked about. When those foreign empires we mentioned earlier came in swinging their swords and burning down cities, they thought they were winning. But while they were busy fighting with physical weapons, Iranian ideas were quietly hacking into their minds. Think about it. Concepts like a singular creator, angels and demons, heaven and hell, a cosmic battle between good and evil, and a final judgment day. These weren't just Iranian ideas for long. They were exported globally. These concepts were so incredibly powerful that they deeply influenced the biggest heavy hitters in world history: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So when the Greeks, the Romans, or the Arab armies clashed with Iran, they might have taken the land for a little while, but the Iranian ideology had already taken root inside their own belief systems. Iran didn't need to conquer the world with a sword, because they completely conquered the world's soul. When you can literally shape how your enemies think about God, life, and the afterlife, you don't ever truly get defeated. You just absorb them, you digest them,
and your spirit lives on forever. So now we enter the absolute peak, the gold standard of ancient history. We've talked about how Iran survived using the power of the mind and culture, but let's not get it twisted. When it was time to build a physical empire, they built the biggest, baddest superpower the world had ever seen. But they did it completely differently than anyone else. Think about how ancient empires used to work. Before this, you had the Assyrians and the Babylonians. Their whole vibe was pure, unhinged terror. If they conquered your city, they burned it down, enslaved everyone, and made an example out of you. That was the standard playbook.
Enter Cyrus the Great. This guy rolls up and completely flips the script. Instead of ruling through fear and destruction, Cyrus realizes something incredibly smart. Terror is exhausting, but tolerance builds loyalty. When Cyrus conquered Babylon, he didn't burn it. He freed the enslaved people, including the Jewish people, let them go home, and told everyone they could keep their own religions and cultures. He literally put this in writing on something called the Cyrus Cylinder. This wasn't just some royal decree. This was basically the world's very first charter of human rights. It was a massive flex. He built the first truly global empire, not by crushing people, but by respecting them. Then comes Darius the Great. If Cyrus was the visionary founder, Darius was the ultimate CEO. He took this massive, sprawling empire of 50 million people, which was nearly half the world's population at the time, and actually made it run smoothly. He is the absolute father of administration. He built the Royal Road, this massive, hyper-efficient highway system that connected the empire. He set up the world's first postal service. You could send a message across the known world in days instead of months. The level of organization was just absolutely next level. Now, we need to stop for a second and break a massive Western myth. If you've watched Hollywood movies, you probably think the Greco-Persian Wars were this epic moment where the tiny, heroic Greeks completely destroyed the giant Persian machine. Spoiler alert, that is entirely a Western fantasy. Yes, the Greeks won some battles like Marathon and Salamis, but to the Persian Empire, losing Greece wasn't a fatal blow. It was barely a mosquito bite. It was a paper cut on the edge of a massive, thriving continent. While the Greeks were writing epic poems about how they defeated Persia, the Persian Empire was still sitting comfortably as the wealthiest, most dominant political and economic force on the planet. They literally spent the next century buying off Greek politicians and using Greek soldiers as mercenaries. The Persians didn't fall to the Greeks, they just stopped caring about that specific border. And this superpower status didn't just fade away. Fast forward a few centuries to the Sassanid Empire. This is the era where Iran became the ultimate brick wall. You see, the Roman Empire was expanding everywhere, crushing everything in its path, and taking over the Mediterranean. But when Rome tried to push east, they slammed face first into the Sassanids. For hundreds of years, these two colossal heavyweights traded blows. Rome could never conquer them, and the Byzantines could never break them. The Sassanids weren't just a stepping stone for Western empires, they were absolute equals. They fought the Romans to a standstill time and time again, proving that the Iranian spirit wasn't just surviving, it was actively competing for the title of the greatest power on earth. Alright, so here is where we get to the absolute master twist of this entire story. Remember earlier when I mentioned that Iran didn't just survive its conquerors, it actually digested them? Let's talk about the ultimate proof of that. Let's look at the great inversions. First up, we have to talk about Alexander the Great. He rolls into the Persian Empire, burns down the majestic capital of Persepolis, and claims the throne. In Western history books, this is always framed as the ultimate flawless victory. But history has a crazy sense of humor, because almost immediately we get this massive plot twist known as the Alexander paradox. Here is the wild truth. Alexander didn't change Persia. Persia completely changed Alexander. Within just a few years of his so-called victory, he started dressing up in traditional Persian royal robes. He adopted their super strict court etiquette. He married a Persian noblewoman, and he even started demanding that his own tough Greek generals bow down and treat him exactly like a Persian god king. His own men basically wanted to mutiny
because they were like, "Bro, what are you doing? You went entirely native." Alexander might have conquered their land, but Iranian culture completely hacked his brain. But if you think that's insane, fast forward to the 7th century. The massive Arab expansion sweeps out of the Arabian Peninsula and changes the world forever. Now look closely at what happened to the rest of the Middle East. Huge, ancient places like Egypt and Syria had their own incredibly deep histories and languages. But when the Arab armies rolled through, those places were totally transformed. They adopted the new religion, yes, but they also lost their native languages and their ancient identities. They literally became Arab. Then those same armies hit Iran, and here is where the Iranian cultural immune system kicks into maximum overdrive.
Iran eventually accepts the new religion of Islam, but they draw an absolute unbreakable line in the sand when it comes to their core identity. They basically looked at their conquerors and said, "We'll take the religion, but we are keeping our soul." Despite massive, overwhelming pressure, Iran flat out refused to let their language, Farsi, die out. They refused to let go of their ancient, thousands of years old festivals like Nowruz, the Persian New Year. They held on to their poetry, their art, and their history with an absolute iron grip. And it gets even crazier. A little while later, during the famous Abbasid Caliphate, which is considered the absolute peak of the Islamic Golden Age, guess who was actually running the show behind the scenes? The Persians. The caliphs might have been the ones sitting on the throne, but the entire massive empire was basically running on Persian software. The brilliant bureaucrats, the top-tier advisors, the scientists, the writers, and the masterminds who actually managed this massive global system were overwhelmingly Persian. They basically took over the new empire from the inside out. They didn't need the military title of conqueror because they became the brains of the entire operation. This is the ultimate historical flex. When you can literally lose a war, get conquered, and then end up managing the entire empire of the people who just conquered you, that is next level. That is exactly how you survive for 5,000 years. Alright, if you thought the Greeks or the Arabs were a tough test for Iran's survival, buckle up because you are not ready for what happens next. In the 13th century, Iran didn't just face an invasion, they faced the literal apocalypse.
Enter the Mongols. First, Genghis Khan, and later his grandson Hulagu Khan, rolled out of the steppes, and their goal wasn't just to conquer the Iranian plateau. Their goal was to delete it. We are talking about destruction on a scale that is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. When the Mongols hit legendary, massive cities like Merv and Nishapur, they didn't just take over the government, they slaughtered everyone. Millions of people. They literally built mountains out of human skulls and turned some of the most advanced cities on Earth into empty, smoking graveyards. If there was ever a moment in history where it looked like the Control-Z button was pressed on the civilization, this was it. It looked like the absolute final game over for Iran. But here is where the Iranian cultural immune system does something so insanely powerful, it almost feels like magic. You've got these terrifying Mongol warlords sitting on piles of rubble, ruling over the ashes. But give it a generation or two, and what happens? The absolute wildest plot twist imaginable. The fiercest, most brutal horsemen the world had ever seen suddenly became total fanboys of Persian culture. The Mongol rulers, who set up a dynasty called the Ilkhanate, basically drank the Persian Kool-Aid. They stopped living in tents and started building these insanely gorgeous, intricate Persian mosques. They started speaking Farsi. They became obsessed with Persian poetry, art, and miniature paintings. The conquerors who tried to wipe Iran off the map ended up becoming the biggest sponsors of Persian culture in the world. Once again, the physical army lost, but the culture completely enslaved the conquerors. But history never stops moving. And a couple of centuries later, Iran faced another existential crisis. This time, it wasn't barbarians on horseback. It was a highly organized, high-tech superpower right next door, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were expanding like crazy, swallowing up the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. Iran was right in their crosshairs, and they were in serious danger of just being absorbed into this massive new empire.
So, what did Iran do? In the 1500s, a new dynasty called the Safavids came to power, and they pulled off one of the smartest, most strategic moves in geopolitical history. They needed a way to guarantee that Iranians would never, ever blend in with the Ottomans. Their solution? They used religion to build a massive, invisible wall. The Ottomans were strictly Sunni Muslims, so the Safavids made Shia Islam the official, mandatory state religion of Iran. Now, this wasn't just about theology or beliefs. This was a brilliant geopolitical firewall. By taking a different religious path from the Ottomans, the Safavids drew an ultra-hard line in the sand. It was their way of saying, we are fundamentally different from you. You cannot absorb us. You cannot digest us. That decision forged a brand new, bulletproof national identity. It locked in Iran's borders, secured their independence, and created the modern nation of Iran that we still see on the map today. All right, let's fast forward to the modern era, where the game completely changes. We leave the era of guys on horseback with swords and enter the age of suits, treaties, and oil. Welcome to the 19th and 20th centuries, where Iran finds itself stuck in the middle of something called the Great Game. Imagine the Middle East as a giant geopolitical chessboard. On one side, you have the British Empire, and on the other, the massive Russian Empire. Both of these absolute heavy hitters are looking at Iran, hungry for power, influence, and most importantly, the massive oceans of oil sitting right under the ground. For decades, they treated the country like a playground, trying to pull the strings behind the scenes. It was a completely different kind of invasion, not by armies, but by economics and political sabotage. But then, in 1935, the ruler of the country, Reza Shah, pulls off a massive masterstroke rebranding campaign. He literally sends a memo to the entire world, specifically the foreign diplomats, and tells them to completely stop using the name Persia.
You see, Persia was a Western word. It was the name the ancient Greeks gave them. To the rest of the world, the word Persia sounded romantic, but it also sounded like a dusty museum exhibit. It gave off vibes of flying carpets, ancient ruins, and old poetry. Reza Shah basically said, "We are not a theme park for Westerners to romanticize. Call us by our real native name. Call us Iran." It was an absolute power move. It was his way of telling the globe, we are a modern, independent nation, and we are not your chess piece. And then the ultimate plot twist hits in 1979, the Iranian Revolution. Literally overnight, the entire geopolitical chessboard is flipped upside down. Iran goes from being one of the West's biggest allies in the Middle East to becoming its loudest, most fiercely independent critic. The entire dynamic with the West completely shifted, creating the intense, complicated relationship we see on the news today. Which brings us to the ultimate modern paradox. When people in the West hear the word Persia, they think of romance. They think of stunning architecture, the beautiful poetry of Rumi, and golden empires. But when they hear the word Iran, they immediately think of politics, sanctions, and global tension. But here is the crazy truth. It is the exact same land. It is the exact same people. It's just two different pictures of the exact same 5,000-year-old soul. That ancient, invisible cultural code we've been talking about, it is still alive and kicking. From the Babylonians to Alexander the Great, from the Mongols to the modern Great Game, the world has thrown absolutely everything it has at this piece of land. And every single time, Iran's immune system just digests the attack, absorbs the shock, and keeps right on surviving. So, after looking at all of this, it leaves us with one massive, lingering question. Is a nation truly defined by the borders drawn on a map, or by the politicians running the government? Or is a nation's true identity its spirit? A spirit so deeply bulletproof that even after 5,000 years of the universe trying to delete it, it refuses to die. Putting this video together, finding these high-tech 4K maps, and digging deep into the actual facts of history took me weeks of non-stop research. I didn't just want to make another basic history video.
I wanted to tell the real, raw story that gets ignored by mainstream textbooks. If you felt the passion behind this project and learned something mind-blowing today, hit that subscribe button and join the community. We are